You need to leave this seat immediately. This chair isn't meant for someone like you." That sentence echoed, gentle in tone, yet steeped in an entire system of unspoken prejudice that no one dared to name. A black man, sitting in the correct seat assigned to him, holding a premium membership card, was asked to move, simply because a white woman usually sat there. No one defended him, no one stood up, but just 5 hours later, the very people who tried to remove him were fired, and an entire powerful organization was forced to suspend operations for 48 hours, to confront the truth they had long tried to bury: bias is real. And it often starts with the smallest, quietest things. But what no one expected was this. The man they tried to remove that day wasn't just a customer. He was the one holding shares, holding the power to make or break the entire system they served. Bullseye. Have you ever been looked down on, just because of your appearance, skin color, or the way you carry yourself? Collision. Get ready, because today's story will keep your eyes locked till the very end. Blank. Underscore. Blank. The VIP lounge at Medtravia Health Tech Center, America's leading medical technology hub, was designed as if it were made exclusively for the elite. From the honey-hued ambient lighting to the gleaming caramel-toned handcrafted leather chairs, every detail whispered a kind of luxury engineered to make one feel they belonged to a different class. Only clients holding the Platinum Medical Pass, a level of privilege far from ordinary, were allowed to enter this space. It was so quiet you could hear the rustle of a book being turned at the far end of the room. Here, attendants never asked what you needed, they already knew. And it was into this space that Dr. Elijah Carter entered this morning, a tall, composed black man in his 40s, with a calm and commanding presence. He arrived without an entourage, no fanfare, no assistant. He simply glided through the biometric scanner with his MedNova Platinum card, the highest tier within the strategic client program. Then he selected seat A3, one of the most scenic seats overlooking the aquascape garden, where morning sunlight filtered through the foliage to cast shimmering patterns on the marble floor. Dr. Carter opened his briefcase, retrieved a tablet, and began working. He was finalizing his keynote for the upcoming Global Ethics and AI in Healthcare conference, where he was the opening speaker. It was work he loved, not for the recognition or the contracts, but because he believed that fair medicine must begin with unbiased technology. But he told no one who he was. No introductions, no business cards, no flaunting of titles. He was simply a client, like anyone else in the lounge. A few minutes later, the stillness in the lounge began to ripple. Sophie Langston, the lead receptionist, a white woman in her early 30s with a neatly coiled bun, hurried toward seat A3. In her hand was a seating tablet, but her expression carried little goodwill. She stood upright, her polite smile rehearsed to perfection, but her eyes betrayed unease. "Sir," she began, her voice hesitant but intentional, "I'm sorry, but it seems there's been a slight mix-up. Seat A3 is usually reserved for one of our most loyal VIP clients. You might be more comfortable in A5 or B1, also Platinum class, of course." From behind her, a woman stepped forward, her gaze slicing straight through Elijah. Abigail Rhodes. She wore an ivory white fox fur coat, Jimmy Choo boots, and a Chanel handbag dangling from her arm. The wealthy white woman didn't need to speak, her presence alone screamed money and entitlement. As if the world owed her convenience. "That seat is mine. I always sit there. For 3 years. No one has dared sit in it before me," Abigail declared, loud enough for others nearby to hear. Dr. Carter looked up, calmly closing his tablet. He said nothing at first. He looked at Sophie, then Abigail, then pulled out his wallet and presented his Platinum card, gleaming with the embossed MedNova logo in gold. "I'm a Platinum client," he said, his voice neither sharp nor cold, but startlingly calm. "And this seat was assigned to me. Confirmed by email and in the system." A pause. Sophie glanced nervously toward Abigail, her eyes silently pleading for guidance. "Yes, sir, but Ms. Rhodes is a frequent guest, very loyal. She's accustomed to sitting here." But Elijah didn't respond. He simply sat up straighter. No reaction, no resistance. But his eyes of a man who had endured this his entire life, looked deeply into the system as if it were a disease. And he He was the first doctor to diagnose it. Every time she visits, your presence here has made her uncomfortable. D. Blank. Underscore. Blank. The air in Medtravia's VIP lounge was no longer still. It now felt like a gilded room quietly burning beneath layers of velvet. Silence no longer meant relaxation, it meant vigilance, observation, judgment. A few composed guests behind dark sunglasses began to glance over at seat A3. It was no longer just a chair, it had become a symbol of the battle between privilege and fairness. Elijah still sat upright, the way he refused to yield, refused to argue, refused to look rattled, only made the situation more awkward for those trying to edge him out. He didn't need to protest with words, his mere presence, in the right seat, with the right status, by all rights, was protest enough. Sophie took a few hesitant steps back. She said nothing, but her eyes flicked toward Abigail Rhodes, as if silently pleading for help. And then, it happened. Abigail, her expression laced with barely disguised contempt, casually opened her crocodile leather wallet. She didn't even glance inside. As if long accustomed to this ritual, she pulled out a neat stack of folded bills and slipped them into Sophie's coat sleeve as the receptionist walked past. No one said a word, but a young passenger sitting nearby, who had turned on their camera earlier, was already recording. The lens wobbled slightly, but captured everything enough, the discreet bribe, and Abigail's whispered words, "Handle this quickly for me. I don't have time to argue with new people." Sophie nodded. Just a small nod, but that nod, subtle as it was, shook the credibility of an entire system. Less than 3 minutes later, Wallace Hinton, head of VIP client relations, emerged from the side entrance. A salt and pepper-haired man, impeccably dressed, with a face often praised as professional, but today, there was a flawed conviction flickering behind his eyes. Wallace approached Elijah with the confident stride of someone used to commanding. No greeting, no introduction. His voice was low, firm, and definitive. "Sir, I need you to vacate this seat immediately. We need to reassign it to one of our longtime VIPs. We appreciate your cooperation." Elijah slowly set down his tablet. He looked at Wallace, not with anger, but as though measuring something far deeper than just a seating dispute. "I have a platinum card. This seat was assigned to me. I've caused no disturbance. And I'm working. Why should I leave?" Wallace's reply came quickly, but the tone lacked conviction. "Because there are clients who are more familiar with us." A middle-aged woman across the room exhaled audibly. A black man in a lavender dress shirt winced. An Asian youth ordering a drink subtly turned his phone camera closer, zooming in on the exchange. They didn't speak, but they saw. They knew. A biased system doesn't need to scream. It doesn't need to name itself. It only needs nods of quiet agreement, silent compromises, bribes no one dares question. Elijah still didn't move. He simply said, quietly, "I will not leave, and I will not argue further." Because sometimes, silence is the loudest accusation of all. Wallace clenched his jaw. Impatience flickered in his eyes. But he couldn't resort to force, not here. Not with more than one phone camera aimed at him. A pause. Tension tight as a drawn wire. Just one more step, and this situation would spiral beyond control. Blank. Underscore. Blank. No one in that lounge, not even Abigail, could have predicted that what seemed like a simple seat dispute would escalate this far. And more importantly, no one expected the black man in seat A3 to still be sitting there. Unmoved. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't lash out. He didn't defend himself with anger. Instead, he remained still, like a mirror reflecting every hidden bias silently swirling in the room. Wallace, the head of VIP client services, was used to giving orders and being obeyed. But now, standing before him, was a calm, steady, and unshaken black man, making Wallace's authority feel suddenly hollow. Tension thickened as Wallace clenched his jaw and pulled out the internal phone. His voice was urgent, low but audible enough for fragments to slip through. "Call, Mr. Rutherford is down here. Immediately." A few minutes later, from the elevator at the end of the corridor, a tall man with silver-streaked hair, dressed in a sharply tailored charcoal suit, emerged. "Dean Rutherford, Chief Operating Officer of the Med-Travia Center. He moved quickly, but not hurriedly, the stride of someone used to commanding systems. Upon arrival, he stopped in front of Elijah, gave a brief assessing glance, and spoke in a calm, even tone. "Sir, I'm Dean Rutherford, the operations director here. I've been informed of an incident involving seat allocation." Elijah nodded slightly, his gaze unwavering. "I'm sitting in the seat assigned to me," he replied, his voice just as calm as it had been from the start. "I'm a platinum member. My seat was confirmed. I've caused no disruption, and yet, I'm being asked to leave because someone else is more familiar to you." Dean blinked. In that moment, he realized he was standing at the center of a scenario where any answer could ignite a firestorm. So he tried a different tactic, soft pressure, wrapped in diplomacy. "I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding. But for the comfort of all our regulars and to ensure a smooth experience, we can offer you a place in our internal lounge reserved for experts. It's quieter, more private." A polished way of saying leave quietly, without drawing more attention. But Elijah had encountered this play before. He looked up, eyes steady as they met the three men standing before him, Wallace, Rutherford, and now a security guard who had appeared at the door. "I see," Elijah said. "So today, the lesson isn't about medicine or technology. It's about who gets to stay and who's deemed unfit to belong." A long silence. Then Elijah spoke slowly, each word clear and deliberate. "I will not leave. If you want me gone, call security, escort me out, but I will not stand up to prove I'm not worthy of this seat." Dean turned slightly, exchanged a glance with Wallace. The security guard stepped forward. The air in the room froze. Some guests were now on their feet. An elderly Asian man murmured, "He's right. Why are they kicking out someone who belongs here just because another person's more familiar?" Further back, a black woman in a professional dress whispered, "I've been recording since the moment that woman slipped her the money. Can't believe they're doing this." And then, Dean said something no one expected to hear in a place that prided itself on elite discretion. "If you continue to refuse, we'll be forced to escort you out of the center through security procedures." Elijah slowly set down his pen, reached into his suit pocket, took out his phone, opened the camera, and said, "Then I'll record this, so it's clear that a leading medical center, one that claims to provide equitable and comprehensive care, is ejecting a legitimate client from his assigned seat, just because someone else would rather sit there." And that's exactly what he did. The camera began to roll. And just like that, the masks began to fall. Blank. Underscore. Blank. The soft hum of the central air conditioning became the only sound echoing in the room. Even the keystrokes, the rustling of newspapers, the polite offers of tea, all the routine sounds of elite normalcy, vanished. Every eye in the lounge now turned toward seat A3. That leather chair was no longer just a seat. It had become a battlefield. Elijah Carter sat upright, his gaze steady on the phone camera still recording. Nothing was threatening in his posture. Yet his quiet, unwavering presence was the most powerful act of defiance this institution had ever witnessed. Dean Rutherford, the branch director, looked pale. He wasn't used to being filmed, especially not in a moment where all his justifications felt flimsy and biased. "You're violating internal policy by recording inside a private space," Dean said, voice strained but controlled. "I'm recording myself being asked to leave a seat that was legally assigned to me." Elijah replied, "I haven't intervened, haven't yelled, haven't caused disruption. I'm sitting. And that is enough for you to handle me." At that moment, two security officers in dark blue uniforms entered. Their stride was firm, their expressions stern, but not without a hint of hesitation as they approached Elijah. They had likely dealt with many disruptive incidents before. But this time, they were approaching a man who sat silently, respectfully, and entirely within the rules. One of them, shorter and older looking, stepped forward. His voice was deep. "Sir, we've been informed of a situation that requires our assistance. We need to ask you to leave the facility for clarification purposes." "And the reason?" Elijah asked, still seated. "I'm in my assigned seat. I'm a verified member. I haven't disturbed anyone. I've simply refused to give up my place to someone else because she's more familiar to you." The guard glanced at Dean, then looked back at Elijah, avoiding the core of the question. We're acting on instructions from the executive office. We ask for your cooperation, so this doesn't escalate further. Just then, a woman's voice cut through the room, clear, young, and angry. He hasn't done anything wrong. Why are you trying to remove him? The room stirred. A young woman, petite but fierce-eyed, stood up. In her hand, a phone was still recording everything from the beginning. I'm seated just across from him, she said louder, making sure everyone heard. I captured the moment that woman slipped cash to the staff. This isn't about a seat. This is discrimination, and I'll testify to that. Dean froze. Wallace glanced at Abigail, who was still standing arms crossed, lips tight, but her confidence had visibly faltered. No one had expected such a simple situation to explode into a full-blown PR disaster. Elijah slowly stood, not rushed, not angry. He closed his tablet, rolled up his earbuds, and packed his documents and laptop into his bag. Then, turning to the security staff, he nodded respectfully. I'll leave, but not because I'm in the wrong. I'm leaving, so you don't have to choose between integrity and your job. No one said a word, but every gaze in the lounge followed Elijah's steps, not with pity, but with respect. And just as he passed by where Wallace stood, something unexpected happened. Abigail stepped closer, as if just to confirm he was finally leaving. But in a split second, her hand brushed Wallace's suit pocket, and a folded bill slipped right in. A sideways glance, a faint, smug smile. Thanks for taking care of this little issue, she whispered. In classy places, sometimes, you need the right janitor for the mess. What she didn't realize was that at least 3 other phones were still recording. And every word, every gesture, was now captured, clearly and undeniably. Blank. Blank. As the glass doors of the VIP lounge closed behind Dr. Elijah Carter, it was as if all the air had been sucked out of the room. But outside, the world had already started to ignite. There was no wind in the sky that day, but a storm was raging across social media. In a different waiting area, where patients awaited general health checkups, one staff member stared at the phone screen, watching the first video just uploaded to TikTok. Video cam. Black man kicked out of VIP seat at Medtravia. Just because a white woman liked to sit there. Clear footage. Money handed to the staff. What do you think? The view count jumped from 1.000 to 50.000 in under 10 minutes. Outraged comments flooded in like a tidal wave. The hashtag Medtravia discrimination soared to trending, faster than the media team could comprehend. Meanwhile, in a quiet private lounge tucked away behind the medical center, Elijah sat down in a simpler chair, not luxurious, not polished, but enough for him to open his tablet, plug in his earbuds, and connect to his company's internal network. He accessed the emergency operations panel of MedNova Systems, pressed the call record button, and began to speak. Sarah, I've just been forcibly removed from Medtravia Medical Center, the same place we're evaluating for a $40 million AI collaboration contract. I need to convene an emergency board meeting immediately. Get Elise, the COO, and Mark from legal. Prepare the documentation. We're responding with law, with data, and with truth. Within 20 minutes, at a MedNova partner office in the same city, COO Elise Tran, a sharp, commanding Vietnamese-American woman, was already present with 2 legal advisors. They didn't have to wait long to act, because the video had already gone viral, with over 2 million views in under an hour. Clips captured the moment Abigail slipped cash to the staff, her openly biased remarks, and Elijah's calm, dignified resistance. High above, in the top-floor executive suite of Medtravia's glass tower, a red-line internal phone rang nonstop. Mr. Walters, we have a major problem, the crisis communications officer reported. Breathless. We're caught in a massive discrimination scandal. A video's gone viral showing a VIP being ejected, and it appears he's an extremely important figure. Daniel Walters, CEO of Medtravia, furrowed his brows. Who? Silence. Then, in a lowered voice, the answer came. It's Dr. Elijah Carter, founder and CEO of MedNova Systems. The man we're trying to lock into an exclusive tech partnership. And also the strategic investor who, quietly, acquired 18% of our shares through a private fund. Walters collapsed into his chair as if someone had punched him in the chest. The man they had kicked out of seat A3, the man their staff deemed unfit to be there, was the one holding the most leverage over their entire digital transformation initiative. Beads of sweat began forming across his forehead. Call Dr. Carter, right now, directly, no front desk. If he doesn't pick up. He paused, voice trembling. Prepare for an emergency shareholders meeting. Today, blank, underscore, blank. 38th floor, strategic boardroom of Medtravia headquarters, a room proudly nicknamed The Summit, had never been this crowded. Senior shareholders, executive board members, financial strategists, and legal advisors were all present. Some hadn't even had time to change out of their golf polos or dinner jackets. The lights were dimmed, save for the large screen at the head of the table, and the tension in the room was too thick to name. Daniel Walters, CEO of the corporation, stood at the front, hands clasped, eyes cast downward at the freshly printed document in his hand. Emergency Internal Incident Report, Strategic Client, Elijah Carter. A voice rang out from the end of the table, sharp, controlled, and commanding. Dr. Carter has arrived, a board member announced. All heads turned. Dr. Elijah Carter walked in, no longer the quiet man in seat A3 from that morning. He entered like an auditor of truth, no raised voice, no show of force, but every step carried the weight of a verdict approaching. Beside him walked Elise Tran, COO of MedNova, along with two others, a corporate lawyer and a media strategist. They didn't need to speak. Their presence alone spoke volumes. Walters stepped forward, extending his hand with a strained smile. Dr. Carter, I want to extend my deepest apologies for what happened this morning. I'm not here for apologies. Elijah cut him off, calm but sharp as steel. I'm here to deliver a decision. The room froze. Elijah didn't look at anyone. He simply opened his folder, pulled out the pending Medtravia MedNova partnership contract, the $40 million AI healthcare transformation initiative, and placed it on the table. This is the contract we've been negotiating, he said, and this, he held up another document, is the record of the 18% stake MedNova has quietly acquired in Medtravia over the past 2 years through a subsidiary fund. Along with several allied shareholders, we now hold veto power. Walter's eyes widened, his mouth opened as if to protest, but Elijah raised a hand, signaling, no need for rebuttals. I'll keep this brief. I have 2 demands. I won't repeat them. Small Diamond 1. All staff involved in this morning's incident, from the receptionist, the head of VIP client services, to the branch director, must be terminated immediately. No suspensions. No dragged-out investigations. Immediate termination. This wasn't a service mishap. It was the exposure of a deep-rooted culture of bias. Small Diamond 2. All partnership plans between Medtravia and MedNova, including the AI system transfer, data integration, and process migration, are hereby cancelled. We cannot collaborate with a system that masks discrimination behind a facade of premium care. Had I not held power, I would have been dismissed as a problem client, erased from your system. One board member cautiously raised a hand. Dr. Carter, I believe we could renegotiate, perhaps implement retraining? Suspend rather than fire? Elijah looked directly at him, not with anger, but with a gaze so firm that the entire room fell silent. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, this is no longer an internal matter. This morning's video has surpassed 6 million views. What you do next isn't just an apology to me, it's a statement to the public. That Medtravia takes responsibility. Or it doesn't. Just then, a senior communications officer rushed into the room, face pale, stocks crashing. We're down 11% in under 2 hours. Without immediate action, projections show a 25% drop by market close. Walters leaned forward, gripping the edge of the table like it was the last lifeline. If we meet your demands, would you consider salvaging anything? Elijah calmly closed his folder. Not salvage, he replied. Rebuild, from the ground up. Blank. Underscore, blank. 4:30 p.m. 21st floor, Medtravia's Human Resources Disciplinary Office. a place usually reserved for minor administrative violations like tardiness or unnotified absences. But today, it was surrounded by 2 uniformed security guards, an in-house attorney, and the HR director herself. 3 chairs faced a display screen. Seated were Sophie Langston, senior receptionist, Wallace Hinton, VIP services manager, and Dean Rutherford, branch director. They sat in silence, one with head bowed, one clenching his fists, one staring at the floor, as if hoping this was all just a bad dream. The HR director didn't waste time with small talk. She opened her laptop and hit play. The screen lit up with footage from that morning. Small Diamond Sophie is approaching Elijah. Small Diamond Abigail slipping cash. Small Diamond Wallace is demanding that the seat be vacated. Small Diamond Dean issuing threats of removal. Small Diamond a close-up of Abigail again slipping cash into Wallace's jacket. Along with her chilling remark, "Thanks for taking care of this little issue. In classy places, sometimes, you need the right janitor for the mess." The video paused. No one spoke. The silence stretched on, each second heavy as stone. The HR director spoke softly, but firmly. "Let me be clear. All 3 of you will have your employment terminated, effective immediately. Your participation in discriminatory behavior, acceptance of bribery, and failure to manage a high-level incident has caused serious damage to our reputation, our stock value, and our strategic partnerships. There will be no appeal, no hearings." Sophie broke down in tears. Her hands trembled as she choked out, I knew I should have stopped it, but I was afraid of losing my job. I never imagined it would come to this." Wallace tried to keep his composure, but his voice cracked. "I just thought it was the way to maintain relationships with our VIP clients. I never imagined he was the principal shareholder." Dean, older than the other 2, spoke low and reflective. "I believed what my staff told me. I didn't verify. I chose familiarity over what was right." The HR director didn't soften. "We gave you authority, and you used that authority to shield bias. And the worst part is this. If the man removed this morning hadn't been Dr. Elijah Carter, but just an ordinary doctor, or a young black student, what would have happened then? Who would have spoken up?" No one answered. The 2 security guards gently guided them toward the door. The silence in that moment, it was heavier than any punishment. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Upstairs, in the executive operations room, Elijah sat with CEO Walters and the crisis communications team. On screen was a detailed report. Stock prices had begun to rebound slightly after news of the terminations was released. Major news outlets were replaying the video with captions like, "From being removed over a wrong seat, to the man who made an entire institution bow its head." A public apology letter had been prepared, but Elijah hadn't signed it. He leaned toward Elise and whispered, "I don't need them to kneel. I need them to stand up and change." Blank. Underscore. Blank. The next morning, 9 a.m., the entire executive leadership team of Medtravia gathered at the Central Auditorium, a space typically reserved for billion-dollar contract announcements with global investors. But today, there was no champagne, no tea service, just silence, tension, and 100 expectant stares. On stage stood CEO Daniel Walters, beside Dr. Elijah Carter, the man who had once been removed from seat A3, now reshaping the culture of the entire corporation. Walters began, voice low and slightly trembling. "Today, I don't stand here as a symbol of power, but as a messenger of remorse. What happened was not an exception, it was the consequence of a system long accustomed to silence in the face of bias. We failed, and we won't hide that." He turned toward Elijah and gave a solemn nod. Elijah stepped forward. He didn't carry a script. He didn't need one. His presence alone silenced the room of regional managers, department heads, senior staff, and branch directors seated below. He began, "If yesterday I wasn't Elijah Carter, but just a regular nurse, if I didn't hold equity or influence, would anyone have stood up?" No one answered, but the weight in the room deepened. "We didn't just remove 3 individuals." Elijah continued. "We need to remove the mindset that discriminates against an invisible part of the process. Therefore, as a major shareholder and strategic technology partner, I propose a plan unprecedented in Medtravia's history. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Blue circle 1. Immediate 48-hour suspension of operations. All VIP services, internal coordination, and client-facing departments nationwide will be temporarily shut down. Every employee, regardless of rank, will be required to undergo comprehensive retraining on unconscious bias, systemic discrimination, and handling sensitive situations. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Blue circle 2. A complete overhaul of staff training systems. MedNova will partner with experts in ethical AI, social psychology, and human rights law to design immersive simulation-based training. Employees won't just learn the theory. They'll take the lead roles in scripted discrimination scenarios and be required to dialogue, react, and learn to make it right. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Blue circle 3. Launch of a transparent intervention protocol. Every client who feels unfairly treated will be able to report directly to an independent oversight board with community representation, bypassing all direct supervisors. Blank. Underscore. Blank. A ripple passed through the room. A few Asian, Black, and Latinx employees seated mid-row, people who rarely spoke during review meetings, nodded gently. In their eyes wasn't awe or spectacle. It was the first flicker of hope. Elijah concluded, not with an ending, but with a beginning. I don't need a system built to serve me. I need a system that serves the right people, with the right respect. The entire auditorium rose to its feet. No one was asked to. No one was instructed. There was only silence. A silence not of fear, but of reflection. For the first time, they weren't being taught how to serve better. They were learning how to understand people. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Day 1 of the Rebuilding the Culture of Service program began at 7 a.m. Every Medtravia branch across the nation, from the wellness centers in Los Angeles and New York to the specialized treatment hubs in Houston and Boston, was completely shut down. Round pushpin thousands of employees, from our coordinators, receptionists, managers, to security staff, gathered in internal conference rooms that had been transformed into behavioral psychology simulation chambers. Each person was asked to turn off their phones, remove their employee badges and name tags, and bring only one item handed to them at the door: a small mirror, accompanied by a single instruction. You'll need this mirror, not to fix your appearance, but to face the hardest thing of all, yourself. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Small diamond from training to psychological challenge. There were no dry lectures. Instead, participants were placed in realistic, immersive simulations developed by MedNova's expert team, with the support of AI systems and social psychologists. One of the core scenarios: a Black customer asks for assistance. The trainer plays the role, speaking softly, stuttering slightly, dressed modestly. If the employee hesitates, acts awkwardly, or shows suspicion, the AI records the response instantly. No one was yelled at, but everyone was asked to pause and look into the mirror. Blank. Underscore. Blank. In one simulation, Linda, a 45-year-old white supervisor formerly in charge of VIP coordination at the Chicago branch, broke down in tears. I don't know why I doubted that man until I looked in the mirror. She sobbed. I realized, deep down, I had assumed that respectable people look like me, speak like me. I was wrong. At another session, Jorge, a Latinx receptionist, confessed, I've always been afraid of losing my job if I didn't cater to wealthy white clients. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I now see I was trading someone else's dignity for my own job security. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Small diamond Elijah showed up, no speech, just presence. Throughout the training, Dr. Elijah Carter made surprise appearances. Not to lecture, not to correct, but to sit among the staff, listen, and sometimes, to share his story, not as a CEO, but as a man who was once told he didn't belong. On one particular afternoon, he sat beside Raymond, a security guard who had been stationed outside the lounge the day of the incident. Raymond, eyes red, said quietly, I saw it all, but I didn't intervene. I used to think, it's not my job, but now I know, silence is complicity too. Elijah placed a hand gently on his shoulder. That's exactly why you're here today. Not to be judged, but so you'll never have to stay silent again. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Small diamond. No one left the same as when they arrived. At the end of each training session, participants were given a final task: to write one sentence on their mirror, using a permanent marker. Who will I be when I face an injustice I didn't cause, but have the power to speak against? No one was allowed to leave until they had written it. Many mirrors were cracked, but for the first time, many eyes became truly clear. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Blank. Underscore. Blank. 6 weeks later, a rainy afternoon atop the highest floor of Medtravia headquarters. The first phase of the system-wide transformation had officially concluded. Customer satisfaction had increased by 17% in just 1 month. Nearly 70% of employees voluntarily submitted internal improvement proposals, a first in company history. The video of Elijah's Reform Summit speech had surpassed 20 million views. Becoming a global service industry symbol, it seemed like the right time to close the book. But Elijah chose instead to open a new chapter. Not for himself, but for those who had once been wrong. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Small diamond. The Second Chance program was born. At an unexpected press conference hosted by the MedNova Foundation, Elijah stepped forward. I don't believe justice is about erasure. I believe justice is about confrontation and reconstruction. He announced the launch of Second Chance, a program offering individuals involved in discriminatory actions a path to redemption through learning, service, and acknowledgement. The first 3 invited to join? Sophie Langston, the receptionist; Wallace Hinton, the VIP manager; Dean Rutherford, the branch director. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Small diamond. Face it, own it, change. At a private training center, the 3 dismissed employees, alongside others from across the service industry, began a 6-month journey. They didn't just relearn skills. They had to attend intensive social psychology classes on unconscious bias, perform volunteer work in underserved neighborhoods where people of color and immigrants have long been overlooked, write weekly public reflection journals titled, What I Once Believed, and How I Was Wrong. Sophie, once silent, now spoke up the most during group discussions. I wasn't evil, but I let my passivity turn me into a participant. And I'm sorry. Wallace, who once equated silence with professionalism, now lectured hospitality students. I was taught to serve, but never taught to listen to those who weren't like me. Dean, once at the top of the hierarchy, now served as a lead instructor and mentor for the Second Chance program. I believed I was fair, but fairness doesn't come from your title. It comes from asking yourself hard questions. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Small diamond. A small ceremony, and one powerful handshake. On the final day of retraining, inside a modest hall, Elijah arrived, not as the founder, but as a fellow traveler. He handed certificates to each participant. When it was Sophie's turn, she stood before him, eyes misted. Thank you for not turning away. Thank you for giving me the chance to truly see myself. Elijah took her hand and replied, It's because you dared to face it that you now deserve to move forward. The room rose in a standing ovation, not for a celebrity's presence, but for the return of those who had fallen, yet chose not to stay down. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Small diamond. A letter sent, and a new beginning. That evening, Elijah posted a short, handwritten letter on his personal page. I forgive, not because I forget, but because I refuse to carry what this system has planted in too many of us. No one is born knowing how to discriminate. We are taught that, but we can also unlearn it. Don't wait until you become the victim to stand for justice. Don't wait until you're famous to speak the truth. And if someone has ever walked past you as if you were invisible, remember, light may come late, but it never forgets the way. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Today's story isn't just about a seat being taken, not just about a man being deemed unfit for a space that called itself elite. It's about all of us. Those who've been looked at with suspicion, pushed aside, or stayed silent when someone else was treated unfairly. And it's also about second chances. Not just for those who were right, but for those brave enough to make things right. Rock if you've ever been misjudged because of your skin color, your voice, your appearance, or your job. Speech balloon, share your story in the comments. You never know, your voice might be the light someone out there is waiting for. Loudspeaker, and if you believe this, that every human being, no matter who they are or where they're from, deserves to be treated with dignity and fairness. Right finger like this video. Share it with someone who needs to see it. And subscribe to our channel to keep telling stories that awaken and heal. Because we're not just watching videos. We're building a community where justice doesn't come from shouting, but from awakening.